They think I'm broken. I'm not broken. I'm not the one who's sick. The world is. You're right. I deserve a fresh start.
Welcome back, everyone. This is my breakdown of The Penguin episode 4 titled Shaitani. For me, this episode completely flips the show on its head as we get to look into Sofia's past and find out the true identity of the Hangman. After this episode ended, I think we have a new character to root for moving forward. We got a lot to get into, full spoilers ahead. We open this episode with seeing the moment before Vic arrived with the exchange between Oz and Nadia while Sofia watches as she learns that Oz was working with the Maronis and that he also killed her brother Al. You'll notice how everything just stops around Sofia after hearing this news as she watches Oz just talking his mouth off and just knowing that she should have never trusted him. We watch as Oz is pleading to Nadia and shares his plans with her on why he's working with Sofia as we catch up to the point in which we see Vic come in. In the midst of all the chaos, Sofia manages to escape but hits her head but still manages to call Julian before passing out. Before we get into breaking down Sofia's backstory at Arkham, I just have to say this now. These scenes added so much depth and understanding to her character, and oh my goodness, the performance by Cristin was nothing short of phenomenal. As we flash back to a much different time in Sofia's life as she's introduced as the chairman of her mother's foundation. Now in the speech that Sofia gives, we find out that her mother, Isabella, suffered from depression, and when she was 9, she took her own life. Or that's what Sofia's been told and led to believe. Now in this scene, we see a young Oz and Sofia have somewhat of a respectable and great relationship as her driver. Now Sofia even knows that Oz's job as a driver isn't the best job out there, but she even acknowledges the fact that she thinks of them as being underappreciated individuals. Now as she awaits Oz, she's introduced to a woman who wants Sofia's help in piecing together a mystery of women taking their lives by hanging, similar to Sofia's mom, but the thing is, all these women worked at the Iceberg Lounge for her father. Now this exact conversation brings Sofia to a memory when she was 9, and we see that she was the one that actually found her mother's body. Now we cut to seeing our first appearance of Carmine Falcone alive as we see that Sofia is definitely the most trusted and reliable one in their father's eyes, as Carmine tells her that one day he wants to pass the family business over to her. Sofia tells her father about working so closely with the foundation has brought up these memories of her mother as she goes and sharing how she never really remembered her mother ever being depressed or sick. Now, we can clearly see her father is dodging the questions and wants to avoid this directly as he tells her,
"Your mother was a proud woman, stubborn. She refused my help. Sofia, why would you do this now? Picking away at old wounds. You know how it upsets me."
Now we cut to the next scene where we find Oz driving Sofia and Al, and you'll notice in this moment that Al was disrespecting Oz by calling him the Penguin, but again, we get to see a little bit of that friendship between Sofia and Oz as she's protecting him by telling her brother to not call him that. Now, against her father's wishes to stop picking at old wounds, we see Sofia is asking her brother if he knew anything about those women that worked for her father at the club, and questions if he really knows who their father is. Now, you'll notice that Oz is listening very carefully to this conversation, which to me just kind of points to the fact that he knew all about the Hangman. Now, instead of getting things prepared for her father's birthday, we see Sofia has Oz take her to meet with Summer Gleason, who works for the Gotham Gazette. Now, for my Batman animated fans out there, you'll remember that Summer Gleason was someone that was very important to the Gotham scene. She was considered one of the biggest celebrities and a media figure in that TV series. Now, Summer shows Sofia the evidence and how all these women's deaths are all connected in the sense that they didn't just die by hanging, but instead they were strangled. Now, Summer wants Sofia to either wear a wire to her father's club or at the very least give her access to the club so she can uncover the truth. Again, we see that this exact conversation leads Sofia to remembering more about the day that she found her mother, as we see her father comes in to shield her from finding her mother, and she notices that there's scratches on his hands and there's also marks under her mother's fingernails, which to me was just confirmation of the theory I shared with you all weeks ago that Carmine is actually the Hangman. Now we see Sofia's pushing back against these allegations that her father has anything to do with these women's death, and more importantly, we see Sofia is in denial and she couldn't fathom the idea of her father being a murderer. Now, another important thing to point out during these scenes is we see that Oz is telling Sofia that meeting with a member of the press isn't a good look for the family. But we know that she obviously didn't listen to Oz in this moment, and this to me was basically the moment Oz knew that it was time to tell her father what she did, and we know that this is the moment that would change Sofia's life forever. Now, one of the elements that I loved about this episode is how much we got to see a different side of Sofia before entering Arkham. We even have this friendly interaction between Sofia and her cousin Carla as they're talking about Luca marrying his third wife, which I'm assuming is the wife that we see in the present day that's cheating on him with Johnny. And again, a much different vibe than when we saw these two at her brother's funeral a few episodes ago. Now, going back to what Oz tried to tell Sofia in the car, as we see that her father calls her in his office to confront her. And it's clear as day that Oz is the one that shared this information with Carmine. Now, we get this Batman reference from Carmine in this scene, and we also see this character a little bit later as Carmine name drops Kinsey, who you all will remember was in the Batman film and also got his nose broken by Batman and also saved by him after Selina almost killed him. Sofia mentions to her father the scratches she found on his hand that day that she found her mother, and you can see the nervousness and the fear in her voice when she's asking for reinsurance from him, as he tells her that she's confused and that she's sick and she needs to return home immediately. Now, a question I have for you all in the comments is, what exactly did Sofia's mom Isabella say or do, or what did she find out about her husband to make him kill her? I wonder if that's ever going to be revealed in this season. Did Isabella find out that he had a love child in the name of Selina? Did she find out that he was killing other women? Again, I'm just so curious to find out if we'll learn what Isabella learned about Carmine to end up leading to her death. Now, in the car, we see Oz tries to apologize, and the only reason he did this and told her father was to protect her. He's doing his job. He's looking out for her and her best interests. Now, as they're driving, we see Kinsey and some other officers pull them over and have Sofia step out of the car, and they arrest her for the murder of the reporter, but also they arrest her for the murder of the other women that was killed. Now, Oz seems to be just as surprised as Sofia in this moment, which makes me question, do you all think that Oz knew that she was going to actually get arrested? Again, I know last week he said that he didn't know that she was going to go to Arkham, but I don't really trust Oz. But again, do you all think that Oz knew that this exact moment was going to happen in regards to Kinsey and the police? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. But again, this just goes back to the thing I love about this episode. It just gives us so much context to episodes 1, 2, and 3 with the conversations of Oz and Sofia initially talking about, I know why you did that in episode 1, and obviously in last week's episode, them talking about this exact moment. It just adds so much more depth and context to these characters and their relationship. Now, we get a chance to see exactly how fast and how much power Carmine has, as all the articles are already calling out Sofia as the hangman, and her father is now saying that she has a history with mental illness. Sofia learns that her entire family, minus her brother, is backing the claims that she is ill, which to me, again, just points to her father being such a cruel man. Now, Sofia learns that she's being sent to Arkham for 6 months till she faces trial. Now, I'm gonna say I don't think Al wanted any of this for his sister, but I do have a question. Do you all think that Al knew about the women that was killed? Did he know the truth about his mother, or is he innocent in this situation? What do you all think? Does Al know? Does he not know? I mean, some part of me tells me that he doesn't know because he seems to be kind of the dumb one, doesn't really pay attention to too many things and doesn't really dive deep into things, but he might be fearful of his father and kept his secrets to keep his sister safe. But again, let me know if you all think Al knew or he didn't know in the comments below. We watch as Sofia is being brought into Arkham and loses any and all of her freedom and power that she once held. Here's where she meets the doctors and she meets Julian Rush, and where she learns that she won't be having any visitors while she's spending 6 months in Arkham. And could you imagine just one day you're free and you have your whole life in front of you, and the next thing you know, you're being thrown into an asylum by your own damn father? Now, inside Arkham Asylum, we see Sofia meets a new friend who, I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was a child. By the way, their voice was so high-pitched, and honestly, for like a split second, I thought that this was gonna be the show's version of Harley Quinn, but then I quickly realized that makes no sense. Now, this new friend goes by the name of Magpie, and it sounds like she killed her own stepmother, which led her into going into Arkham. Now, for my comic fans out there, Magpie does come from the comics. She's known as a jewel thief, and she first appeared in the Man of Steel issue 3 that dropped in November of 1986. As we cut to the next day, where Sofia is immediately greeted by the other inmates in the lunchroom welcoming the hangman. We watch as Magpie shows her excitement for the med she's gonna get, which is the same drug that Sofia used to make the bliss. As Sofia meets another inmate, one in particular who is unchained, and confronts her about killing those women and begins beating Sofia and beats her up so bad that she eventually knocks her out. As we watch Julian and Sofia have their first official conversation, as Sofia believes that the attack was coordinated and that she tells him that her father set her up for the murders. As Julian claims that he's only here to help her out and nothing else, setting up for him being the only person that she can possibly trust. As we continue to see the corruption within Gotham, but in particular the corruption within Arkham and Carmine's influence, as Sofia is brought back to the lunchroom and forced to take out the woman who attacked her in front of the guards and the head doctor. Now Sofia doesn't take the bait and she drops the fork that she was given, and we see the woman actually picks up the fork and stabs herself in the neck, ending her time being tortured at Arkham. As we get these sets of scenes showing us Sofia is being put under extreme levels of shock therapy sessions without her consent, as we see this is a consistent thing that she's going to go through day in and day out. As we see her slowly losing herself each time as she's trying to get through to Julian to make this stop. Now we see over time that her dreams are becoming nightmares as she sees herself ending up like her mother, which explains why we saw her waking up with those panic attacks grabbing her neck after her nightmares, similar to the scene that we saw her in a closet back in episode 2. Now Sofia finally gets a visitor, and it's her brother Al, and this is the exact scene that we saw in the opening of episode 2 with him visiting her from her therapy session. Now Al tells her the unfortunate news that she will not be getting a trial because the head doctor at Arkham told the judge that she's unfit to stand trial. Now after getting the terrible news, we see Sofia is just completely broken and completely hopeless at this point. As she enters the lunchroom, as Julian apologizes for what just happened, as Magpie is happy to know that she's going to have a friend now that's going to be here for a while, as she tells her that she can now get the candy, as we watch Sofia begins to think that Magpie might be a spy and working for the doctor. Now in a moment of rage, we see Sofia bashes Magpie's face into the metal table, killing her, and we see that Sofia gets put down. Now we don't see any more of her time at Arkham, and I do wonder if we'll ever revisit her time again in this season, especially the moment that she actually got out. Now we cut back to the present time where Julian found her after she called him. As Sofia has no allies, and after Oz's betrayal, she only has 1 day left to leave to Sicily, and she has no options left. As Sofia confronts Julian about their time at Arkham and the control that he had over her during that time. As Sofia just wants to get the truth about why he's helping her and not getting anything in return. As we find out that Julian eventually left Arkham, leaving Sofia there, and he even had help in getting her out. As Sofia believes that he only is helping her now because of his guilt, as this to me is the exact moment Sofia knew exactly what she had to do to get her fresh start. As Sofia returns home to all the people she called family and betrayed her as she walks in on the family dinner celebration for Luca. As Luca gives a family speech, we see Sofia interrupts him and shares her own speech instead. As she repeats all the names of the women that she was accused of murdering, and she also shares what it feels like to be betrayed by the one she loved, but it's now time for new beginnings. We watch as Sofia takes a smoke, and it's important to notice whose room she's in, and that's Johnny, and she also leaves the window open. As Sofia takes the only innocent person left inside this house, as she takes her niece outside to eat some cake, and this is something that she used to do with Al when they were younger. As she tells her niece about the story of what happened to her and why she had to fight against her monsters. As we cut to the next morning to see Sofia wearing a mask, and was it just me or her wearing this yellow dress and sleeping in the greenhouse? Was anyone else thinking that this is giving off some Poison Ivy vibes? Wouldn't it be pretty crazy if Matt Reeves makes Sofia into the Poison Ivy in his Batverse? As she has gotten rid of her monsters by killing everybody in the house by poisoning them by releasing some type of toxins within the air vents, but again, she left the window open in Johnny's room, keeping him alive for them to talk, most likely for her to talk about how she's gonna now officially be taking over the family business, but also how they're going to set up to killing Oz. Now, was this a smart move by Sofia by her killing off the most important members left in her family? Will she maybe use this as a bargaining tool to maybe join forces with the Maronis? Man, this episode just made me think Bruce Wayne and Sofia Falcone have so much in common with their mother's deaths and how their mothers were being labeled as having mental issues. And it makes me think about the Batman and the scene at the funeral with the mayor and how Bruce was being taught talked to by Carmine, and it makes me think, I wonder if Isabella knew something about the Waynes, and again, what did she know to have her husband kill her? But seriously, after this episode, I've never wanted two characters to meet so badly before, and I'm referring to the half-sisters of Sofia Falcone and Selena Kyle. This was my favorite episode of this show. I mean, what an incredibly written episode with a phenomenal performance. It just makes you look at Sofia and her story and everything about her so differently, and she's essentially the hero of this series for me personally. Added so much to the relationship between Oz and Sofia. It makes you just rethink about those scenes prior to this episode, again, as well as the conversation at the end of episode 3. And this episode just put more assurance on me thinking how Oz is just a piece of you-know-what. He's a terrible individual, and seriously, I don't know if I can root for Oz anymore after this episode. I want Sofia to win, I want her to kill Oz, and I want her to take over Gotham. But no, in all seriousness, I think, you know, everyone's talking about how they think that Vic's gonna die at the end of the season, which could still be a possibility, but I'm thinking the way this episode was set up and how they're setting up Vic and Sofia, these two broken people that are just gravitating towards Oz, and they have a certain type of understanding of Oz, and they want good for Oz in a sense, right? Think about Vic, how he gravitates towards Oz. Think about how Sofia was nice to Oz when they were younger. But what if we see by the end of the show, Sofia ends up getting killed by not Oz, but by Vic? And it was an order by Oz, and it just kind of shows that repeat cycle of violence. I'm just so curious to know what's going to happen moving forward. And going back to just my thoughts of this episode, and this is, again, I know that I was in a minority talking about how I wasn't the biggest fan of episode 3. Like, there were things to take away that I enjoyed, but this is what I wanted from episode 3. This gave us the backstory. This gave us a better understanding of who these characters are and their motivations and their struggles, and this was a full breakdown of their why. I mentioned last week how I'm not fully convinced of Vic's turn of a character of losing his family to becoming a criminal all within 2 weeks. And this episode just did such a brilliant job of giving us the full backstory. Well, not the full backstory, but giving us a lot of the insight of her time at Arkham. And we understand and believe Sofia's vengeance and her hate towards the various men in her life that lied to her, including Oz. And again, these lies are going to catch up to people. And listen, I want Sofia to be the queen pin of Gotham. Now, after this episode, what will Sofia do next? Will she have Johnny set up something with the Maronis and the Bliss and she'll completely take over the business? Will she now hire a crew of her own to help her take on Gotham and to be the queen pin of the family, but also to find and kill Oz? Which, speaking of Oz, what the hell will he do now? We saw the end of that scene at the beginning of this episode. Sofia knows everything now, and the Maronis know everything now. So where does that leave Oz and Vic? Especially with the Falcones being wiped out, who's going to protect Oz now? Listen, I wouldn't be mad at Oz if he gave a call to someone by the name of Batman to help him out and protect him from being killed. And going back to Oz, I think it's time for Oz to get his mom and to move her further away from Gotham, because at this point, Sofia is going to find his girl Eve and everyone important to Oz after the switch of her killing everyone in her own family and to kill anyone that has wronged her in the past. Now, before we wrap up, if you made it to this point in the video, I really appreciate the support. Do me a favor, put hashtag Team Sofia in the comments. Now, I'll be back next week to break down and discuss episode 5. But again, if you all enjoy and appreciate these breakdowns, hit that like button, share this video, share your thoughts about this episode, deeper meanings, Easter eggs, and what you all hope to see in the weeks ahead in the comments below. And also, if you have some fun, consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel and hit that notification bell. Between now and then, check out my recent movie reviews that I have on my channel. Check out my breakdown of the recent news within the DC universe of the casting of the Green Lanterns, the box office failure of the Joker 2, and also I did like a little report card of James Gunn and Peter Safran, so check out that video in the comments below. You all are amazing, stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next video.